Hi, welcome to D10tion, where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to D&D. I am your host, Tristan, the Souls of the Innocent. To my left, we have Sam, a bagel. To my right, we have Brandon, now! Two bagels.
Which segues perfectly into what we're talking about today.
Bagels.
No,
we're going to be talking about Warlock!
Yes!
The Locks of War!
One of the coolest and often either overrated, depending on what you're trying to get out, or underrated story-wise classes. So Warlocks are near and dear to my heart. And as near and dear to your heart.
Because they're good for plot development.
Well, they are. I mean, they're good for plot development. As a DM, I love a good Warlock. But they're also just really cool characters how you build them. So we're going to be going through building one up to level 5 like we did with the Barbarian. And breaking down the different paths you can take, their benefits, their downfalls. So without further ado, take it away.
So we are building our Warlock, and her name is Desdemona, and she is a Tabaxi.
Cat person.
Because +1 to Charisma.
Which is good.
And +2 to Dex. Which
is
also
good.
pretty good. And I think we're going to make her a bit more of a slonky Warlock, maybe. So...
All right, so let's start with how we start with level 1 with the Warlocks. So
as soon as you decide, or someone else decides for you, that you want to, gain power or serve a higher being, you get a patron.
Ooh, what's a patron, Brandon?
Your patron is a being. Doesn't have to be a god. It can be any higher life or being that can bestow its greater power upon you. It can be anywhere from a demonically forged blade that has some sort of or demonically forged entity, to an archfey, much as the classic one I go with is Oberon, to a literal angel person, to somebody like Cthulhu. And there's other ones in between. We'll break those down, but those are some of the more chosen ones. So you get either, if it's level 1, you generally, if you're starting off as a Warlock, you sit down with your DM and you decide what the patron's going to be. At a higher level, when you multi-class into a Warlock, you get a preference. But if you're going around stabbing a bunch of people and ruthlessly murdering somebody, and you go, no, I want a Celestial. Depending on what's going on in the campaign, the DM may be like, that doesn't make sense.
No.
Yeah.
And that through that patron, you get your Pact magic, which is how Warlocks cast their spells. So that's just level 1. We can go from there.
So level 1 hit dice is 1d8 per Warlock level, which isn't great, but it's also not horrible. Could be worse.
It's not a rogue.
Not a rogue. Unfortunately. Rogues. Your hit points at first level are 8 plus your Constitution modifier, so it's important to have a high con. And for every level, you also gain an additional 1d8 plus your Constitution modifier. Your proficiencies, you get light armor, simple weapons, your saving throws are Wisdom and Charisma. And then you can pick any 2 skills from Arcana, Deception, History, Intimidation, Investigation, Nature, and Religion.
So Arcana.
Oh, yeah, Arcana is a pretty solid choice if you're starting off as a Warlock.
Yeah.
Because you generally need or want to have an understanding of the magic. Unless you want to play a character that's very aloof to the magic they have. But Arcana is a pretty solid choice.
Yeah.
So that's my vote.
I think that depending on kind of how your otherworldly patron goes, religion might not be such a bad one.
If you have a more cleric, I'm a subservient, I work for you for the good,
right.
Greater good or greater glory, that works.
But honestly, I'm more partial to investigation. I think that investigation.
I just made a headcanon for Desdemona. She's like a detective.
Detective Warlock
Okay,
Desdemona.
Detective Warlock it is.
I'm Detective Desdemona. Desdemona's a girl's name.
I'm Detective Desdemona.
They call me D for short.
Anyway.
The DD.
And
the
at
Detective
first
D.
level is where you pick your DM picks your otherworldly patron.
Bum, bum.
Which, let's get into those, shall we?
They are tons of fun.
Now, just because it's not on this list, And just because it doesn't what you have in mind might not fall into one of the categories, doesn't mean your DM can't sit down with you and work it into one. Think of these as, if you want to play by the book, it's what it is. If you want to play with a little more homebrew, your own little personal spice, think of it as a guideline in the abilities you get, but narrative-wise and flavor-wise, you can pick something else.
For example, I know that there is a really good homebrew for the Raven Queen as your otherworldly patron that I personally really like, but it's not on here.
What? Cat? We have our own cat, Desdemona, oddly enough.
Oddly enough, we have our own little Tabaxi Warlock circling around down there.
Just beguiles her with her influence.
But yeah, so you can kind of look at what's out there. Your DM can kind of work with you as far as that goes. But these are the ones that are a little bit more official. They have some stuff on D&D Beyond to help you choose.
So my favorite is the Archfey, because I see nothing greater than a lord or lady of the fair, of the Fae, a creature who is legend and holds secrets within them to give you their power to just go out. Because a lot of the Feywild is very chaotic and very strange and very fun for some people. So I normally pick, if I get the choice, to go with the Fairy King himself, Oberon. Because as throughout history and throughout the writings, he's demanding, powerful, but also very fun. He likes to have fun. He likes to, jest around in the world of mortals. So what better person? You get, and with each of your patrons and who you pick, you get certain spells you automatically get. And you don't have to worry about preparing them or learning them. You just get them.
Yeah.
So the way to break it down is you get anywhere from first level spell to fifth level spell through your patron. You're guaranteed at least some first to fifth, no matter what. Even if you choose other ones you want to learn, you're guaranteed to get these, and these all change. Yeah. So if you guys want to break it down, or I can just keep rambling.
So I know if you choose the Archfey, at first level you get what's called Fey Presence, which means that any creature that's within a 10-foot cube, you can cause them to have to make a Wisdom saving throw against your Warlock spell save DC. And the creatures that fail this become charmed or frightened. So right off the bat, that's kind of nice, because you can just be in a combat with somebody and they have to make that saving throw, and if they fail, they're like, oh, I'm not messing with this guy. Which
He's too beautiful.
Which is probably good, because as a spellcaster, you're kind of sometimes a glass cannon. You're not really, you're easy to break. So
that's why picking high constitution as a warlock, especially depending on which later thing you pick, is important. Yeah. You also get, the Misty Escape, which allows you to go, now you see me, now you don't, I'm out of here. Higher levels you get Beguiling Defenses, which helps you, be immune to charm. You can charm people easier. And then the 14th level, your final thing from the Fae, is the Dark Delirium. Starting at 14th level, you can pretty much go, you're in an illusionary realm. You just take over someone's brain, and then
anybody here?
They pretty much are in they're lost in a realm of mist, which is the Feywild, pretty much. So they're lost in the Feywild. That's my favorite. The spell list is pretty cool. You can check that out online, no problem. Pretty much it's a lot of control. Take over someone's mind, which I love as a warlock.
Yeah.
So then you can take the Celestial if you'd like and break down the holy person. The Celestials, I'll start it off. The Celestial is pretty much you're following somebody from the upper plane. So a being of, most of the time, light, somebody like a Solar, a unicorn. You can have a unicorn be your patron.
Right. You've bound yourself to an ancient...
Imperial, pretty much an ancient holy person.
Solar, Karen.
Ancient good most of the time.
Your Pact will, with that being, allows you to experience the barest touch of the holy light that illuminates the multiverse.
So this is the closest if you're going to be a non-cleric cleric.
It's Cleric Light.
Cleric light.
Cleric light.
All the taste of cleric, but not the calories.
So you get, we said the other ones, you get different features.
Mm-hmm. At first level, you get an expanded spell list, bonus cantrips, and you also get Healing Light.
Which the other ones don't get. It's one of the few healing spells you can just have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At 6th level, you get stuff like Radiant Soul.
So, kind of you can you pretty much if someone's trying to hit you with like radiant or fire damage, you take less of it.
10th level, you get Celestial Resilience.
So you gain temporary hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier, which should always be your highest thing to go to. Your spells are based on Charisma.
And level 14, you get Searing Vengeance.
So pretty much when you make a death saving throw, at the start of your turn, you can instead sprint back up to your feet with a burst of radiant energy. So it's like free, I succeeded. Free natural 20, I'm back up. Here we go. And if people around you take down, each creature you get to choose. So you don't have to worry about exploding your friends and being like, ah! Things you choose are blinded, they take damage, and, you're back up. So the Celestial is fun if you want to take a twist on the Warlock, because most people think the Warlock is, I bind my soul to you, which is the next one, ironically. Yes. But this one is the chance to come to terms and meet with a higher being that you're like, you want to do good, I want to do good, but I don't want to devote a religion to you. And they're like, that's fine. I'm a unicorn. Nay!
Nay, have some power.
Take it from my court. Unicorn!
That would be a cool thing if you guys both multi-class in Warlock.
Sword becomes blessed by a unicorn.
He would die.
He's like my favorite creature. You have blessed me with your power.
So
he just wants to meet what? So the next one
is the most
the opposite.
Is the tied for most iconic Warlock patron.
The Fiend.
And the Fiend is kind of what a lot of people think a Warlock is, which is basically, hey, there's this demon that wants to buy your soul, and in exchange he'll give you some power.
The devil went down to Georgia.
Basically.
You've made a pact with the Fiend from the lower planes of existence. Yeah. A being who aims are evil.
So, like, the traditional, like, you want to take over the world? I want to take over the world. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
I mean, because even if you strive against those aims, it still happens.
Yeah.
Now, at first level, you get an expanded spell list. So a lot of them are more like fire-based spells, Fireball, Burning Hand, Scorching Ray, things like that. You also get the Dark One's Blessing, which is at first level when you reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points, you gain temporary hit points equal to your Charisma modifier plus your Warlock
Which is
level.
really good if you're going to be a combat Warlock. Now, like we talk about with other things, you don't always have to, except for the Barbarian. The Barbarian's like almost always combat. Warlock doesn't have to be combat focused. You want to be able to hit things, and this is a good patron if you want that, like being able to hit and not go down when someone sneezes on you.
Yeah. 6th level, you get Dark One's Own Luck, which is basically you can call upon your patron to be like, hey, I want to change this ability saving throw. That was not too great. You basically add a D10 to your roll.
Please help me.
Which
Mephistopheles,
is nice.
Please.
Yeah. Fiendish Resilience, which is you choose a damage type after you finish a short or long rest, and you gain resistance to that damage type until you choose a different one. So every day you can have resistance to a different damage type.
So let's say you know you're going to go into an area that is full of a bunch of radiant damage. You can be like, radiant.
At 14th level, basically when you hit a creature with an attack, you can use Hurl Through Hell, the feature, to transport the target into the lower plane. So
it's
basically,
one of the coolest names.
You're like, I don't want you here anymore.
Opponent yeet!
And it comes back, but when it comes back and if it's not a fiend, it takes 10 D10 psychic damage. So let's say you're fighting a barbarian who has the totem of the bear and they can only be affected by psychic. This is the perfect way.
Barbarian yeet!
Barbarian yeet!
And then they just,
my brain!
So it's pretty nice.
So that one's a really common one. You can get really, if you know like biblical lore or other demonic lore, that's where your DM and you can sit down and make like a really interesting, you don't have to go with like Satan. You can go with, like in D&D there's Asmodeus, or you can go with a Demogorgon, or the Demogorgon. So
there's tons of demon lords and tons of just demons in general. Fiends.
And this is where you can add your story minute to make it like, let's say, there's one of my favorites is Yengu, the demonic father of gnolls. You can be like our Tabaxi, who wanted to be more like wished upon a star that did not come true to become a gnoll.
Can I be a dog? I don't want to be a cat.
So then you can have them like try and resemble them and work with the story, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get to the other one that's tied for the most often used as a warlock.
The Great Old One.
Most often people synonymous with Cthulhu, but it can be a lot of different things.
There's a whole lore of creatures that are similar to Cthulhu, or at least in that universe.
And in this one, the pact you make with your deity or patron, the Great Old One is one of the few that the Great Old One doesn't even have to know you exist. It's based on the secret and ancient knowledge that you've unlocked, and by doing that, through the eldritchness and through like the Old One's mystery, you've tapped into its like power pool, but it doesn't really know who's tapping into it as long as they are allowing it to tap into it. So that makes it for some interesting story bits.
Yeah.
Like you could pick the Great Old One, and your DM can hide who it's from if that's what you want. They can be like, okay, I know who your patron is. It doesn't matter. You don't have to know. You just have the secret.
It can be revealed over time.
And then revealed over time, the player can be like, wait.
See, and I just love that especially when you look through some of the things that you can get with the Great Old One, they just have some of the best names. Because whether it's something like Gahadahar, you're like, what? Just like called the Thing That Lurks. There's like the Chained God, the Night Serpent, the Returner. Or it's just something. It's something so bad it's unfathomable. And you're like, oh no,
oh God. Oh, by the old God. So, and that gives you your expanded spell list once again. Pretty much that's like dominating things. Think about the darker, like...
it's a bit more mental.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, especially if it's even remotely connected to the lore of which, like, things like Cthulhu or the Lovecrafty thing.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be things that are just so horrible that all it is driving people insane as it destroys planets.
Which is hilarious because your first ability
is Awaken Mind!
So you can touch the minds of other creatures. You can telepathically speak to any creature that you see within 30 feet. You don't need to share the language because you're in their brain. So that is fantastic if you want someone like this, if you want to be like a sneaky warlock and you don't have a rogue but you still want someone to sneak in. Well, I can go over here and hide and eavesdrop and send you the telepathic link, and not only have to burn a spell slot for it, I just do it.
Right. I mean, then at level 6 you get Entropic Ward.
Which, turn an enemy's failed strike into good luck for yourself. So pretty much you can impose disadvantage, and if they miss, your next attack has advantage. So it's kind of like you're forcing the barbarian's reckless attack on them.
Right.
So it gives it but worse for them.
Yeah.
Which is good.
To keep up with the whole like psychic and mental theme, at level 10 you get the Thought Shield.
Resistance to psychic damage.
It's a resistance against it's a shield against thoughts.
And whenever a creature deals psychic damage to you, that creature takes the same amount of damage that you do.
So if you're fighting a mind flayer and they do psychic damage to you, they're like, oh God, what? Wait, what? And then the final one is create a thrall. And a thrall is pretty much you take over someone's body and you make it yours.
This is my body now.
So you pretty much are making like a servant. You just go, you're mine now. And then they're like, okay.
I guess I'm yours now.
And you can communicate telepathically with them. They're technically charmed until someone removes the curse. So that's the Great Old One. That one's really good for unveiling the mysteries of the Warlock and how they got their power. So the storyline is really fun to work with. The Archfey is more, in my mind, the Warlock will keep that to themselves unless they're really open about it. Celestial is definitely going to be like, hey yo! The Fiend, that's going to be pretty easy for someone to be like, that's a bad guy.
Or someone who's using a bad guy's powers.
Yeah, right? And then the Great Old One's kind of like, let's unravel that mystery.
Now, and then we still have two more. We have the Hexblade next, which is probably one of my, like, out of those, like, if you were going outside of traditional, this one is pretty interesting to me. This is where you've made a pact with a mysterious entity from the Shadowfell.
The Shadowfell is right below the material plane. The Feywild's above the material plane, if you're looking at it like on a sandwich. And the Shadowfell is below it. There's no real sunlight. It's just dark and dim all the time. And there's horrible, horrible monsters there all the time. So
they show up as weapons.
Yeah. So they need the sword Black Razor, but it's pretty much a sentient weapon, is so powerful that when you attach yourself to it, it gives you magic.
It's fine, because all I can think about is the singing sword from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Could be one, a horrible one, but it could be one.
It's like the bard version of a
So
warlock.
this is maybe what you would want to play if you wanted to play, like, let's say, basically a sword mage, kind of in a lot of ways, or an eldritch knight. Just a little bit more of a variant on that. It's basically you're a magical fighter, more or less.
I mean, because you get, like at first level, you get an expanded spell list. You get a Hexblade's Curse,
which is great for combat. You're hexing someone to they get. If I do recall, Hexblade Curse gives you bonus to damage rolls against the cursed target. It's your proficiency bonus. Attack rolls, critical on a 19 or a 20, and if they die, you regain hit points.
Which is pretty nice.
Also, at first level, you get the Hex Warrior. You acquire the training necessary to efficiently arm yourself for battle. You gain proficiency with medium armor and shields and martial weapons.
So a lot of people will pick like a one-armed if they really want to, and they can have a shield in the other, just so they can have that extra AC and still get a good attack in if they want.
Mm-hmm. At 6th level, you get the Accursed Spectre.
This is where things might get a little interesting if you're a DM, by the way, because you can
curse the soul of a
fun.
person you slay, temporarily binding it to your service. When you slay a humanoid, you can cause the spirit to rise from its corpse as a specter.
What up, fam? It's your boy Logan.
When the specter appears, it gains a temporary hit points equal to half of your warlock's level. Roll initiative for the specter.
It pretty much becomes a monster you can attack things with.
Yeah.
So you pretty much go, oh, cool, it's got another one. Hey, fight your friend now.
After that, at level 10, you get Armor of Hexes. Your hex grows more powerful.
And pretty much you roll a six-sided die.
You roll a d6.
If you roll a 4, 5, or 6,
Hey, guess
like
what?
that, the person just misses.
Yep.
It just happens. There's no they can't work to stop it. It's just you just go, no.
Stop
Which
it.
is
So, and then the level 14 is Master of Hexes. It's kind of good and kind of bad. There's ones that are better, but this one allows you to go, Hex, that person died, let's move it for free. Let's move it for free. You don't get HP, though, based on every single time that happens. You have to cast it and the person that dies first. But it pretty much gives you the ability to constantly move your Hex.
Yeah.
So even if you're not the one that killed it, you can just go whomp, and flip around so there's somebody that always hexed and you don't have to worry about spending a spell slot. So the spell blade is generally good for if you want to be that battle warlock. Get in there and just be like, ha, how about ye?
So we got one more, and Sam, what's that last one?
that is going to be the Undying,
The
which,
Undying.
as the name might suggest, is a little bit more focused on death.
Now, because I've made one warlock so far. I haven't played him or anything, but this is the one that I chose because it made the most sense for me. Because I made essentially an Arrow Cochrane, a vulture warlock. So he's the death bird with the Undying patron.
So, it pretty much, you can pick anything that that relies on anything undying or resurrecting or zombification, things like that. That's where this one really relies in, is pretty much death is but only a stop on the train. So let's keep riding it.
Yeah.
Just to match everything else, at level 1, you're getting an expended spell list.
Which is all about death. And life, technically.
Also at level 1, you get Among the Dead. You learn the Spare the Dying cantrip, which counts as a warlock cantrip for you.
And then you also get the ability that if undead tries to attack you, and they have to make a wisdom save, and if they fail,
They have to choose a new target.
then you go,
Like, boo! You also have advantage on saving throws against diseases.
You're pretty much like you're not really a zombie yet, but you're kind of like one.
Right.
Internally, you are.
I'm dead inside.
I work my 9-to-5 job.
At 6th level, you get Defy Death. You give yourself a vitality when you cheat death or when you help someone else cheat death. This is where you get hit point. You regain hit points with a 1d8 plus your con modifier.
So pretty much all it takes is one success and you're back up in a fight. And then if you use Spare the Dying, which you automatically get from this patron, that person is then back up. You don't stabilize and you just go whoop and they're back up.
Yep.
Level 10, you get Undying Nature. You can hold your breath indefinitely, and you don't require food, water, or sleep, although you still require to rest to reduce exhaustion and still benefit from finishing short and long rests.
And this is where if your Warlock has the want to live a really, 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 really long time.
Right, this is where you find out you can age at a slower rate.
So you age less than an elf.
I think it's one for every 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So an elf is 10 years and you go 1.
And you're also immune to being magically aged.
So no one can be like, haha, you're an old man now. And you go, like a cloud of, the cloud happens. You're like, haha, I turned you an old man. You're just like,
I'm already 300 years old.
That makes me 40. And then at level 14, you get indestructible life.
Which is also really great. I mean, as a bonus action, you basically can regain hit points.
You like to bring in like Dark Souls into this, you bust a what are they called? A flat and an Estus flask. And you just go. Whoosh.
And the second good part about this is, let's say your arm just gets cut off. Well, you can just take that bad boy and just stick it right back on there.
So you're Deadpool. You become like
you're
Deadpool.
Yeah, if you want to be Deadpool, this might not be a horrible way to go.
You're just insane Deadpool.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be more if you wanted to. You could be sane Deadpool.
Yeah.
So that's all the different patrons. So which one would we like to pick for Desdemona?
Ideals?
Faye.
You like Faye?
I like the Fae. I did say this person is a detective, so we could make him Celestial. And be like doing the good, fighting the good fight. No one really picks Celestial because when people think Warlock, they normally think, I want a demon!
Well, then let's give it Celestial.
Celestial? Alright.
Probably find like some Celestial that's about justice.
Yeah,
now,
like a unicorn.
For your Warlock, you get basically what's called Eldritch Invocations.
Which there are a lot of. We're not going to cover those.
Yeah.
You can find those in the D&D rulebook, in the Player's Handbook. You can also probably find it online or on D&D Beyond. Pretty much there are different ways they give you... Sometimes they give you a spell. Sometimes they give you an extra ability. Sometimes they enhance your ability. Like with everyone, if they want, pick Agonizing Blast, which is what we're going to pick.
Yep.
Because it gives your Eldritch Blast, which does 1d10 damage. It gives your Eldritch Blast your Charisma modifier. So for ours, which is 4 right now, right? No, is it? It's 4 right now.
Yeah.
19 is 4. So right now we're adding 4 damage to everything we hit, which is really good. Some people are like, oh, Eldritch Blast is just a magical crossbow. Yes, but it's a magic attack that does force damage, which a lot of things aren't immune to.
Right.
Correct.
So some things can be immune to a crossbow bolt. A large crossbow, 1d10 plus your dex, but they could be immune or resistant to piercing.
Yes.
And most things are not resistant to magical damage. So
we're gonna take Agonizing Blast. We're also gonna take Eldritch Spear, which I think if you have Eldritch Blast is also good because it basically doubles your range.
So what's the range now?
300 feet.
So most battlefields are smaller than that.
That's where you're like, I see them running.
That's where you're like, oh hey, somebody's coming.
See, my favorite way to I'm going to talk about preference right now. My favorite way whenever I cast Eldritch Blast is to go pew 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 pew. I've seen some people who do it like they're throwing a punch. Some people do it where they're throwing like from the tip of their spear or tip of their sword. They lash it out. I just prefer the gun because it's like meet, destroy.
Yeah. The third one I'm going to pick is Armor of Shadows, which basically you can cast Mage Armor on yourself at will without using a spell slot or material components.
Great.
Which is great because, once again, you kind of want that extra...
your health is moderate, but your AC is probably not going to be that high depending on what you pick.
So now, at third level, you get to pick your Pact boon, and there's 3 different Pact boons. There's the Pact of the Blade, the Pact of the Chain, and the Pact of the Tome.
Which, each one gives you something special, of course. But they're not, like in some cases, what you pick is they're like slight variations. These are all pretty different.
Yeah.
And
some of them might make more sense for others. For example, if you were to pick a Hexblade, a Pact of the Hexblade, you may want to go with a Pact of the Blade because you basically get an additional benefit. Whereas if you pick, maybe something that gives you a slightly more extended spell slot, you may want to pick Pact of the Tome because that gives you even more spells. And if you want a familiar, then you would probably pick Pact of the Chain.
So this is one of the few ways you can get a Fey familiar. Which makes it so your familiar doesn't die. Well, it can't technically die, but it can poof out. Which you can choose one of the normal forms, or you can choose a special form because of the chain, which is an imp, a pseudo dragon, a quasit, or a sprite. So not like a not that kind of sprite. Get them, sprite. Feel a lemon lime. No,
it's citrusy.
Like most people can't have these four because they're linked to like a specialty.
Yeah.
So I would choose, if we're doing like personal, I would probably choose a sprite because I feel like that'd be really have a little like fairy.
Yeah.
So like a Scooby Doo.
The other nice thing about this is not only that, but you can instead of taking an attack for yourself, you can allow your familiar to make an attack, which is pretty interesting because a lot of the times familiars do not attack on your behalf. You can
spend a spell through them,
right?
But they cannot attack. Yeah. So this is why if you want, you can pick like an imp that has like attacks.
Yeah.
Get him. So Pact of the Blade allows you to pretty much have a sword that you can go, or a weapon that you can go, it's here, now it's not. It's here, now it's not. And you can transform it. You can do rituals to, one magic weapon into your pact weapon. So let's say you find a really cool sword and you're like, oh, I want that to be my pact weapon. You can just go, no, it's mine now. Yeah. And then the final one, which I think we're going to pick.
I think is probably the best one in my opinion.
The Pact of the Tome. You get a grimoire, which is a magic book.
And you get to pick 3 cantrips from any class's spell list. It doesn't even have to be the same class's spell list. And you can do them at will, like...
As much as being a cantrip, you can just be like, pew, 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 pew.
Pretty much great.
This is a good moment to mention that depending on which spellcaster you're choosing, you are limited by your spell selection. Mm-hmm. It's not like you pick one thing and you have every to every spell. Like sorcerers have different ones from warlocks, and wizards have different ones and
bards, and each thing. Correct. You can't have every spell list.
Right.
You can't have all the spells.
This is an opportunity for you to possibly grab a spell that you originally couldn't get with the Warlock class, but now you've almost found like a loophole essentially to get it without breaking too many rules.
And one of the coolest things is that if you lose your book, you can spend an hour to go, hey, so sorry about that, and your patron will go, snap their fingers, burn the other book, and give you a new one.
Yeah,
for free. Most of the time, depending. Nice. If you lose it a lot, your patron will probably be like, okay, we're going to have to do a lost and found fee.
Right. So... out of the cantrips, I'm going to go on ahead and we're going to do this one, and I'm just going to go on ahead and pick 3. Let's go in Code Thoughts.
Oh, good one.
Guidance.
Get that
Celestial.
Get that special. Get something cool for that cantrip. We need, even though we have Eldritch Blast, we need something a little more variety in their attack.
Thinking. I mean, there's a couple different types. You could use Toll the Dead or Vicious Mockery.
Toll the Dead's one of my favorites.
Toll the Dead is one of the best.
It's one of the better ones because if they've taken damage, the Toll the Dead they deal more damage. So you can Toll the Dead on somebody.
We'll Toll the Dead.
Which is cool for a Celestial.
Yes. And then we also get ability score improvements, which I'm going to put into, hey, guess what?
Right. Now, this is where you're going to notice that you don't get there's not a whole lot between level 4 and 10, more or less. You get ability score or feat improvements at 4 and 8. And then at 6 and 10, you get otherworldly
your patron features.
So things at like 5, 7, and 9, you get nothing.
Yeah.
Which is a drawback, but you also...
It's almost like a waiting game.
It's a waiting game so you can get to higher things. And so, because you also have to imagine in like lore-wise and game-wise, you're borrowing strength from another person, so they can't always pump more into you until you've proven that you can actually handle what you have. That's how I think of it, is you're pretty much proving to your patron, like, okay, I've mastered what you've given me. Let's go a step further. Let's do this. Let's do the next thing. So then at level 11, later on, you get the Mystic Arcanum, which is you get you get a magical statement called an Arcana. You choose a 6th level spell from the Warlock list, as this is this Arcanum. You can cast this spell once without expending a spell slot, which is great, and you get this a few more times. So pretty much you get a 6th level spell, and at level 13 you get a 7th level spell, and 15 you get an 8th level spell, and 17 you get 9th level spells. That's 4 pretty high level spells that you can cast, each one for free. So without spending a spell slot, you can just go, all right, I'm going to cast my level 9, one of my level 9 Warlock spells for free, which is great. So, I mean, that's kind of the block for making, because there's not really much else you get other than level 20, because everything else, other than the Mystic Arcanums, which are the free spells, and the ability score improvements and your patron features, your final thing is at level 20, which is the Eldritch Master. You're picking spells right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, if you want to...
I mean, at level 20, you can draw on your inner reserve of mystical power while entreating your patron to regain expended spell slots. You can spend 1 minute entreating your patron for aid to regain all of your expended spell slots from your Pact magic feature. Once you regain the spell slots with this feature, you must wait and finish a long rest.
So what most people get is 1 run of their spells. What
you
Eldritch Master gets,
you go
2 runs.
You go like, please let me wait a second. Please give me back my stuff. And he's like, okay, fine. You waited.
So if you're out, let's say you just finished a really big battle, but you know there's something else coming before you can have a long rest. Entreat just go, hey, please, and they go, boom, you're back at it. So that level 9 spell, your level 9 spell slot you spent earlier, got it back.
Yeah.
You can't use a free one because it's different, but you can use a different level 9 spell again, which to use, I guess that would be 3 level 9 spells in a day, is really good.
Yeah.
Because level 9 is the highest you can go.
So while they were talking about that, I went on ahead and I picked spells. Now, normally me as a player, if I was playing a Warlock, I tend to favor the enchantment and the illusion spells. Because we're going with the Celestial, I thought maybe more evocation and conjuration would probably work a little better. So on top of the other 3 cantrips we'd already picked, we picked Eldritch Blast, Poison Spray, Thunderclap, Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Flaming Spear, Shatter, Thunderstep, and I think one that I feel personally that almost every magic user, if they can, should take is Counterspell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Counterspell. Counterspell everything. Even if you don't think you're going to use it, take Counterspell. Yeah. Why? Because there's going to be a moment when your spellcaster can't use Counterspell and you're going to be like, well, look at me, the Warlock, saving your life. Counterspell.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not going to
because
use it.
The cool thing about Warlocks, which we haven't talked about yet, is there are spell levels, but that's not how your spells work. Your spells work on you have so many spells, and they're all max level. So, how many spells per day do you get?
Let me see.
Because I said 3 level 9 spells. Now, I was talking about if you're doing, if you were a regular class that had spell slots. You have spell slots as a Warlock, but they're not based by level. They're just in total.
So, you can have 2 3rd level spells, basically.
Right now.
Which is right now. And everything else is cantrips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cantrips.
Which is a
Which
lot.
is at will.
So,
and don't take up spells.
So you said you get 3 spells a day right now. That are not cantrips.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
2.
That's 2 spells that on the 1st and 2nd level, that's the trade-off. You have a lot of spells you can pick from, but you can only use 2 non-cantrips a day. But, like I said, those are automatically to the highest level. So when you get to 4th level things, let's say you do If you had spiritual weapon, you could do spiritual weapon because technically you can't pick that. I don't think you get that one from your thing, but I'm just gonna use an example because I know how it works. Is spiritual weapon, the higher level you cast it, the more damage it does. Warlock doesn't have to worry about doing that. They cast it and it's automatically maxed out to the highest of their spell casting ability. So that's really good at later levels, especially when you start casting level like 7 and it goes to level 9, or technically level 5 and you have the capability to do 9, it bumps it up to level 9 casting. So that means all of your things are just beefy and maxed.
Yeah. So earlier we had already rolled ability scores for our Warlock, and of course we put our highest stats in Constitution and Charisma. So we have a 12 in Strength, 16 in Dex, 18 in Constitution, 13 in Intelligence, 13 in Wisdom, and 20 in Charisma. So we are one charismatic
So we are
Warlock.
hitting for Eldritch Blast is 1d10 plus 5 every time.
Now I'm saying with a Celestial Warlock, I don't know. Detective, we want to go detective.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think they have a
You could do a what is it?
It's a spy.
No.
Urban
Secret
Bounty Hunter.
agent.
That one works.
Urban Bounty Hunter.
Yeah. You're an urban detective.
All right.
You just happen to do it for money.
So you get 2 additional skill
Cat's
proficiencies.
gotta eat.
You can get 2 between Deception, Insight, and Persuasion.
Persuasion. He's a cat.
Insight.
Persuasion and Insight?
Yep.
All
I'm a
right.
detective.
Then we also get 2 tools. One is either a... Oh, I guess you can get bagpipes, dice set. So basically any sort of musical instrument, playing card sets, or thieves' tools.
Thieves' tools.
And then the second one.
Let's go playing cards.
Playing cards.
What is the best way to get information out of a mafia boss? Playing cards.
Right.
Get them into a poker game.
All right.
Let down the god, then you smack them
So
with your
we'll
information.
roll for our
Go fish.
characteristics. The D8. Or you want to roll a D6? Okay. All right. First one is I am always calm, no matter what the situation. I never raise my voice or let my emotions control me.
Ooh, I like that one.
Second one is I always have a plan for what to do when things go wrong.
Oh, so we just made like a holy Sherlock Holmes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Ideals is a D6, which is charity. I steal from the wealthy so I can help people in need.
Yes.
Bonds. I am guilty of a terrible crime. I hope I can redeem myself for it.
This is so cool.
I'm a dirty cop at one point.
And when I see something valuable, I can't think about anything but how to steal it.
That's the secret. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But that could work as a detective. You can't think of how to steal it, so you're like, how would I steal it?
Right.
And then you think of how the other person would steal it.
Right.
So they're like, oh, they stole this valuable gem. And like, I want to steal it. How would I steal it? And boom, they have who did it.
Right.
Oh.
So then we move on to equipment, which Warlock starting equipment, I mean, you're not going to get started off with a giant battle axe.
No.
You can get either a light crossbow or a simple weapon.
Simple weapon. Because
I'd
you have
say
Eldritch Blast.
simple
We don't need to shoot when we can go pew pew.
What do we want?
Boomerang.
Boomerang? Let's go boomerang. We'll get a detective.
Okay, maybe
Warlock
we
with
should.
a
I mean,
boomerang.
we just said no to the crossbow because of it was a distance thing.
We don't need a boomer. What? Look, think
All
fast,
right.
punk.
All right, then how about instead let's do... How about a club?
Sure. What, a billy club?
That's what I was
I
thinking. It's a Billy Club.
All right, and then you get either a component pouch or an arcane focus.
Arcane Focus.
That
So arcane focuses work. If you have a component pouch, you pretty much it's the game's way of saying like you have any basic component you need. Some things are like it doesn't come with like a diamond worth 10,000 gold, but if you don't want to worry about components and worry about that, our focus will acts as those basic components. You still need some of the higher priced ones. So if you want to cast like Revivify, which costs money. You can't just be like, my Arcane Focus covers it. No, you have to have the money to cover it.
Now, this is where it's essentially like a staff or a wand.
Yeah,
or
so you can
something.
pick, like, if you want, like, an orb or a crystal or, like, a wand or a staff. This is where you would pick
Crystal.
that. Crystal.
Around the neck.
All right. Scholar's Pack or a Dungeoneer's Pack.
Scholars.
We've made Sherlock. We made Sherlock Holmes here.
And then we get our choice of leather armor, any simple weapon, and 2 daggers, so another simple weapon. Darts?
Those would work, or some sort of sword.
I can do a sickle.
That works.
All right.
So sickle.
And then you also get a set of clothes appropriate to your duties. So I'm going to say
The duck hat.
duck hat.
Yes.
And then a pouch containing 20 gold. And
Hey.
we have our warlock.
You know what I'd love to do? We've made 3 level 5 so far. I'd love
Fight
to
them.
I'd love to do a battle royale.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I'm thinking a battle royale or a one-shot where we just assign these characters to people. Like, we don't get the pick. They're just draw a number out of a hat.
So I was going to say, is like, am I going to end up being Dave the Barbarian?
That'd be great. I wouldn't mind being Desdemona.
I think that we should
means
just
Sam
randomly
is
assign.
the...
Tell you what, why don't you guys tell us what you want to see? You want to see a battle royale, or you want to see us just randomly assign these characters and we'll...
I'm down for a one-shot. We just need a DM. Unless I'm going to be the DM, which I could. And I'll just take one of them as an NPC.
Hey.
Or I can be the DM.
Or you can be the DM.
You can be the DM.
You guys decide.
You guys can be the DM.
No.
No.
Maybe not.
No. Scratch
No.
that.
No.
Alter memory. Never happened.
Madness.
No, I'd be down. You guys decide what you'd rather have. If you'd rather have one of us DM, you can pick which one you want us to DM. It'd be fun for his first foray at DMing.
No.
Or we can have Sam here our DM. But we'd be down to do that. So far we have 3. We just need to make 2 more. And we'll have enough for... We won't have to worry about... There could be a switch if someone's really uncomfortable with the character.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I mean, so that's pretty much... We went into pretty in-depth with some parts of that. But that's more or less a warlock.
So, like we were saying, your warlock doesn't have to be the evil. It doesn't have to be like, for my patron.
Right, and this is where we talk about when it comes to other classes, the stereotypes that people tend to feel the need to almost have to do. Or they're afraid that's what they have to do, so they don't pick it. So like what we've seen with the warlock, as we've discussed, everyone jumps to the conclusion that a warlock is, oh no, I have to make a pact with an evil being and be an evil sorcerer, essentially. I don't want to be the villain. But as we've looked through this, you can make pacts with some people like celestials and
the
other
Undying
beings.
isn't exactly evil. It's about death. So you don't have to be evil.
Right.
Sometimes it comes with an evil
And
cost. The
even
archfey
depending
doesn't
on
have
what,
to be evil.
right? It's depending on how you use it. You have power from something, but you make the decision of what you're doing with that power.
And depending on who you get it from, they may or may not be happy with it, may get mad at you for it. But
that's just the story part of it.
that's just the story part. So some people are going to find what I'm about to say a little bit controversial, and some people are going to get mad at it. If you're a DM that forces a warlock to become evil, you need to reassess how you're DMing a character and their expression of what they want to do.
You're just a bad person.
The game is about expressing yourself and being who you want to be and making something you wish you had. If you're forcing people to become evil because they're a class that you think is evil, that's not how it works. Because if that were the case, I would make every barbarian have an intelligence of 2. Because if I believe barbarians are dumb. Or
why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
or a monk has to have a wisdom of the game says 13, but my idea is a monk has a wisdom of 15 or higher. Yeah. That's railroading into what someone wants to be. Let the warlock be the warlock. Let them make the pact, and let them interact with their deity their patron how they want.
Yeah, it's definitely playing to the thing where play the character that you want to be. If you like parts of the warlock where you don't want to be, you have the pact with something, but you're not completely devoted to it, like something like a paladin or a cleric. The warlock it calls you a bit more, again, always talking to a DM, and we've talked about this before in things like Why is D&D. Finding a DM that you work the best with, it's usually one of the better options you can do. There are going to be times you run into a DM who doesn't want to do what you want to do, and you may just have to save, let's say you make a warlock that you like with a celestial. I mean, granted, it's essentially built in here, especially with something like D&D Beyond, where you can make it, and there's no way that DM is going to be like, you have to be evil. It's like
I'm with a unicorn. I'm with an angel of Palor. Like, what do you want me to do?
I'm part of the celestial background and stuff like that. It's like, I'm not evil there,
I'm
DM.
clearly not evil.
I think, however, there's also something to be said to be kind of putting your own flavor on it. Like, whether that's... Maybe both parties aren't necessarily happy with this arrangement. Maybe both parties are a little reluctant. Maybe both parties are fine with it. And I think there's also the other aspect to look at it from what separates a warlock from other spellcasters. Like maybe you grew up as a child, you wanted to learn magic, but you didn't inherit any through a bloodline, and maybe you just weren't smart enough,
right?
Or
Maybe you don't have
learn
access to learn about it.
You couldn't afford to go to a school to be a wizard, so maybe that's your one dream your whole life, and you're just like crying in a field, and then you just get some like fae just comes up to you like
either that or you found one book in that
child.
library like summon a demon, and you're like, Mr. Demon, can I have magic, please? I mean, and like you said, a lot of it comes down to the story that you're trying to tell, and then talking to your DM, because you could definitely do it where like maybe even if it is something like the Great Old Ones, or even a fiend that you're like you make a pact with it, but both parties are fine with you doing whatever you want. It's like, well, normally I like evil things, but as long as my power is out in the world doing stuff, I still get stronger.
Or maybe there's a common goal there. It doesn't necessarily have to be about good and evil, but maybe more about what do both parties really want.
Like for me, let's say a demon is trying to entreat and become like a patron of somebody who's thinking about becoming a warlock. Just because it's a demon doesn't mean it has to be evil. They might have a goal that's a little bit misaligned with what you're trying to do, but they can, like, let's say your person's good and they're trying to take down an even greater evil. The demon may go, this is a threat to even me. I'm evil. That guy's way bad. I'm trying to do things, but if he beats me to that punch, I don't matter anymore. So let me give you power, because if he starts doing more evil stuff and he starts going in power, he's going to fight me, and I can't fight him.
Right, and again, it really comes down to what you're doing, because like you have some like my warlock is with the Undying, but he's with the Vulture, but he's true neutral, where he can be played either with a good campaign or a bad campaign, because he's just a bird of death. That's all. That's his whole purpose. Like, things live, things die. I'm just here to pass on, things that need to die. It's just the natural order of things, and that's where you can really have it. So, like, is he really good? Is he really bad? Or is we having it so he's more aligned with a more neutral perspective? Where some people are like, he's killing things, he's bad. And other people are like, well, technically, he's just killing things that are dying or that need to die.
He's just accelerating life's course. So warlocks, kind of underwhelming if you're expecting like a huge magical cannon like a sorcerer or a wizard, but totally worth it if you want and have a DM that's going to make a really cool story based around it. There's so many cool things you can do with patrons. You can have patrons pretty much go, yoink, you're coming with me, and like pull the party. Or you can have a patron who's like, you're not being good. I'm going to stop most of my power and give them only cantrips. Like, a DM can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So warlocks are definitely really good for the role playing and the story aspect. I mean, this is where, depending on your DM, you can have it so that they're very much a plot device, or or at least have those spice moments of the patron. I keep wanting to say Patreon.
No, that technically it is, the patron is your Patreon. He's your sole patron on Patreon. He donates your profits 100%.
I mean, so warlocks, it really just depends on what you're looking for. And as we talk about things like sorcerers and wizards, or even things like paladins, when you're looking for, or even like druids and clerics, when we're talking about people that use spells in general, it's more of finding that focus of what you want to do with that character. Because you're going to have some characters that are, like we've discussed, being glass cannons, where their whole point is, I'm going to just throw a huge spell at you.
Don't hit me, though.
Yeah, don't touch me. But if they're a character who's not strongly just like, I got powers, I'm a jerk, la la la, versus somebody who wants to play a warlock, who wants to play a little bit more of a character who's like, I wasn't born with my powers. I paid the ultimate price to gain it, and I will devote my life to destroying those who would stand in the way of it. It's like, oh... Okay. So with a lot of these things, when we talk about the classes and stuff, it does come down to what you're trying to do with that character, the story you're trying to tell, communicating with your DM, and really just trying to figure out what you want out of that character. If it's deciding if you want to cast spells, because we've talked about when you make a character, it's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to hit, or do you want to cast spells, or do you want to do both?
Make that tree and break it down. And if you're kind of stuck between some things, Warlock is a pretty good way to do it. You can hit. You can have some cool out-of-battle spells, and you can have some cool battle spells. Right,
because this is where, like, even if you like some aspects, they're like, oh, I like the Warlock, but I want to be able to hit better. It's like, well, then, stuff like the
Hexblade.
The Hexblade.
And take the Pact of the Blade.
Right, and so you can, like, almost build it little bit more, because you're gonna have people that are just drawn straight up to the development of that character. There's gonna be people that have it like, I want to be someone that was born without magic that made a pact, versus you're gonna have someone like, I want to be born with magic, or it's like, I want to be someone that learns magic.
And that's what D&D is good for, making whatever you want.
Right, and this is definitely one of those things, the situations where you as a player get to kind of decide which direction you want as far as the story wise. I mean, if you're going to run into it where you really don't care about the story part of it, you're just a combat focused person. In your guys' opinion, as far as Warlock goes, if you were just strictly a combat person,
I think
would
you'd
you
be missing out on a whole lot if you just wanted to play a combat character? I think I would recommend going with another class, because I think you're missing out on a big,
huge
nice story aspect.
Right.
But if you wanted to, and you wanted to be a warlock because you want the patron and you want things, I would go. If you want to be evil, of course, the fiend. Mm-hmm. If you want a really interesting power set, go with the Undying.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about having it so that if you're choosing a warlock, make sure you're kind of prepared for doing something with that story. It's there, it's right for the picking. If you skip it, you're missing out.
I mean, if you want a good story, pick the great old ones. That's
right.
Like an easy one for your DM to make. Like I said, make a story that you don't even know about, so it's surprising to you and the rest of the party.
Right. Yeah. Versus if you're looking for something more combat focused, you might want to lean towards something
like the Hexblade,
or even another class entirely. If you're just like, I want to go in, charge and hit and use sun magic, maybe a paladin is much more of your taste.
But I think warlocks are also a little like not as much as I would say like bards or some other classes, but warlocks can also fit certain niches. Like let's say your party doesn't have a rogue. I mean, your warlock can basically get a proficiency in deception or stealth or sleight of hands, which can kind of help to make up for that.
Right, and this is where you can, when you pick spells and stuff, this is where you can really kind of focus what you want to do with those spells. And that goes for almost any kind of class. And we'll talk about it more when we talk about stuff like paladins, but I've made a paladin where he doesn't have the typical spells that a paladin would use most often, because those are usually used for like attacking and smiting, versus the one that I've made is almost much more of a cleric in general, where he's much more of a healing and helping. This is where you can do the same thing with the warlock. If you want to be a warlock that's doing like heavy attacks, you can choose much more of the attack spells, or if you want to be a more sneaky warlock or a more
totally do that. It's literally up to you and your patron. You don't
Right.
get a choice. Your patron decides your fate. Lean into the fate of the patron. The patron owns you.
Right.
Sure.
Patrons. Yeah.
Patrons.
Okay. So I think we've pretty much exhausted everything that we can really talk about when it comes to the Warlock. As always, if you guys have any questions about Warlocks or anything else in general or other classes, feel free to shoot us a message or a comment or something. Again, as we mentioned before, if you want to see us do a Battle Royale with Desdemona
and the other characters, or if you want to see a one-shot, or if you want to become a warlock and you need a patron, just let me know. I require $20, and I will be your patron, and I'll give you a few bonuses, such as encouraging words, sound wisdom, and bad monetary advice. Those are your pack boons. So if you want to just send us a message and be like, I want Brandon to be my patron, and I'll do what I can.
He's known as the nerd.
No. The Brandon. He who shall be named Brandon. Could you imagine if that was your name? Like, Brandon, he who is called Brandon. That's your full title.
I would love that. That's my name. That's my patron name, Brandon. He who is called Brandon. There you go. Send that. Ask for that patron, and I'll do what I can.
He who shall not be not called Brandon.
You don't want him for your patron.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You want me. Don't worry about it.
Don't make the same mistake I did.
Hey, remember how I said you don't get a choice? I'm your patron now.
You never knew who your patron was until you reached level 7, and then it's revealed to be the one who shall be called Brandon. And that's just you walk up. Hi.
Hello.
I'm your patron. Oh no.
I made a mistake.
This is why I don't have any power.
Elvis Blast. Okay.
I think we'll end it there with our as we go pray to our patron Brandon that he should be called Brandon. So as always, you can comment, shoot us any messages. You can find us on all of our social medias. We're just about everywhere that you can think of. So as always, feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And we will see you guys next time on D10tion. D10tion dismissed.
Bye.